Hey, good morning, everyone. Pastor Brett here with Gina Hoff, and we're excited to have another time of devotion with you and Coffee and Cuts. So we just got off our fourth installment of the Inconvenient Truth series, preaching about really surrendering our right to respond like the rest of the world when we're hurt. And so I'm curious, Gina, usually you ask me, I kind of want to ask you this week, how did that message hit you? Where did it land? What does it feel like?
Well, it's kind of funny. Full disclosure, I was squirming in my seat just a little bit because I kind of got into a little bit of a Facebook spat myself this week. I don't feel the greatest about it, and so it kind of had me thinking about it. I guess just to share, what happened was, I had seen somebody doing something around town that just kind of gets to me. I see it happening. It's not really an okay thing to do, and it was just kind of bugging me, and so I kind of
wrote about it on social media.
Yep,
I saw this whole thing.
Is this true?
I saw the whole thing.
Your pastor is always watching.
That's right. I totally saw it. It was really cool. So I saw this. You wrote a simple thing, and it seems like it indicted kind of that person's actions or someone they knew or something, and they lit you up. I mean, I saw what they wrote. It was mean.
Very
it was angry. It wasn't cool. And in fact, I'll tell you just a little. I mean, behind the scenes, I saw it. I'm reading this. I'm watching it happen. And there was a part of me that really, as a friend to you, but also as your pastor, I know those things that she wrote about you weren't true. And so I wanted to get on there and be like, hey, how dare you write those things? You don't know this person. She's just trying to state something that's evidently within her right to say, why did you say it? And so there's a part of me that really wanted to speak my mind, but it would have been my flesh, I think, coming out. So I'm glad I didn't write anything either, but I saw what you wrote, and I want to talk about that because what you wrote, I thought was really Jesus-centered, because I was just wondering, man, what's Gina going to say? This lady kind of lit you up, and you just simply wrote back and you said, hey, I'm sorry if what I wrote offended you. That wasn't my intent. And essentially just kind of put the ball back in her corner without saying anything mean, vicious, or vile about her. And I'm over here clapping my hands. I'm celebrating. I'm like, God, thank you. That was a really great witness for Jesus, a really great witness for Calvary Church. That's just a really great witness, but it doesn't always go that way.
No way.
Right?
And that was all God, because of course, like you said, my first instinct was hurt, and I wanted to retaliate back and say, hey, you're not perfect either,
Right. Yeah, how dare you, right?
Right, yeah.
And I see this on social media all the time. I can't tell you how many times I cringe and shake my head at things that are coming out of Christians' mouth on social media. And it really drives me crazy. It really does. And so it goes into this whole idea of we talked about that when you become a Christian, you are literally relinquishing the right to retaliate like the rest of the world.
That's heavy.
You're giving up your right to tit for tat and eye for an eye. You're giving up your right to say, hey, if you're going to dish it out to me, I'm going to dish it out to you, because Jesus has a better way. Jesus never lived his life that way.
Amen.
And if we're going to, be Christians, then we're going to be ones who are going to follow Christ. And so we have to follow that example. And one thing we didn't really talk about much in Sunday's message was, how does this permeate into our home? We had talked about how this is a message, obviously, that affects us in our work world, when people offend us socially, online, whatever. Obviously, all the implications are there. But the one thing we didn't really dig into much is, how do we apply this teaching of Jesus into our marriage, where the person who we love the most, who knows us the most, who knows how to hurt us the best,
right, yeah.
Will often say, do, write something that will deeply hurt us, and we're going to want to be like, yeah, you want to go there? Well, okay, let me point out a couple things about you that are not so beautiful and bold and ugly. Let me point those things out. How do we resist that, right? How do we not respond to our husband or wife in that way? Because you're married, I'm married. I know how hard this can be. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
100%. And I think too, for me personally, a lot of times they hurt you and you want them to share in that hurt. Okay, let's just be hurt together. maybe stepping back and reflecting, like you said, before you react in the message.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I think about is just the temperature of my heart. Am I leaning into a response that's going to build this person up or destroy a part of them? And I think that's a really hard question to ask, because we know that it's going to make us do something and give up something, that we want to do, which is have wrath and anger and malice, and because it makes us feel better that we were hurt, we get to hurt somebody else.
Right.
But there's just a better way. And so at the end of the day, when it comes down to giving up our right, we talked about that in the message, how that really is a attribute of strength, not weakness, that we forsake that inevitable pain that's going to come our way. Yeah, we might in a second feel better and lash out, but then there's going to be the fallout of that response, where if we would have just been quiet or not said that thing, or chose to just exit the situation only to regroup, pray, and then come back in. And every time I do that, I respond far differently to people. In fact, I have a 24-hour rule that I try to live into. If somebody writes or says anything to me that offends me and hurts me, is that I won't respond to them for 24 hours. And it's the hardest thing at times, because there's times over my life, and as a pastor, you can imagine, people will write me things that really upset me, things that shouldn't matter, but they obviously matter to them, and they will write something really mean to me. And I want to lash out and say what I think about that, and biblically and scripturally just slay their opinion about that.
Right.
But instead, I found that when I take 24 hours, and I'll just write, thank you for your message, I'm going to process that, and I'll be in touch in the next day. I find that when I have time to go to the Lord, pray, and seek His counsel, and sometimes the counsel of other saints who have been in the situation before me, I find that my demeanor 24 hours later is always much more Christ-like than it was 24 seconds after they hit me.
That's amazing. That's really good advice.
So maybe that's the application, huh?
Yeah.
That's why we do this stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah. That gives me a lot of conviction, kind of.
Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope this is a meaningful way for you to dig into God's Word a little bit further. And if it meant something to you, be sure to share it with the rest of the world as well. Have a great afternoon. Cheers.
Cheers.